Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the penultimate round of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. We're live here from the wonderful Red Bull Ring in Austria. My name is Connery Maddock. I'm joined as ever by the wonderful Mr. Paul Smith, and we have our special guest commentator here today, two-time winner in the Pro-Am SP9 class of the Nürburgring at 24 hours. It's the one, the only, Nico Menzel. But before I get to Nico, I'll just have to ask Paul, we're here at the Red Bull Ring, one of the newer circuits here on the iRacing platform, and should play host to some fantastic racing.
Oh, it should absolutely do that. It's a fantastic track. Tricky. It's not the easiest tracks to get right, but when you do get it right, my goodness, you have so much fun around this track. And there's limited overtaking opportunities around here, but you will see people making moves, especially into turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, being late on the brakes here at the Red Bull Ring is one of the more important skills that you really need to master to try and get those passes done into those very heavy braking zones. It's a fast and furious lap here at the Red Bull Ring as well. I almost said the Nürburgring. That's where we were last time out. But of course, continuing on into this one, we're getting on to the late part of the season now. The main featured battle that we'll have is Maximilian Berneke versus Diogo Pinto. There's the rundown of the schedule. This is the last known track that we'll be going to. Of course, that final round's venue will be announced 48 hours before the event on October 17th. So just under a month's time before we get to crown ourselves a champion here in the inaugural Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland here on iRacing at least. But now's a good time as any to bring in our wonderful guest commentator, Nico Menzel. Of course, real world driver for Porsche, has competed in so many star-studded events here on the Nürburgring 24 hours, which you've won twice, Nico. You're back in the esports booth once again, like you were earlier on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. Looking forward to a wonderful round at Red Bull Ring. It's a great track. It's 80% straight line speed and full power, but then you have to brake quite late for the chicanes, for the very tight corners. And as you said, Paul, I think turn 3 will be a very challenging and probably also race deciding corner.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. That's kind of going to be one of our main zones where we'll see a lot of action here today. And hopefully the action will be between our two championship leaders, Paul, Maximilian Berneke and Diogo Pinto. They are separated in the standings right now by just 2 points heading into this second to last round. That's as close as you like. It's basically the difference between, it's less than a difference between P1 and P2 in a race.
It certainly is, and it's been absolutely thrilling to watch those two go at each other head to head. Of course, they are teammates now officially, so it's good to see that there wasn't any sort of team orders coming into play. The gloves are off between these two, and it's been tremendous to watch the level of competition between them, because they've just been so much above everybody else in the championship in terms of consistency. I've been there up at the front. And yeah, Diogo had the issues at round 1, of course, at the Hockenheimring. Max Berneke had the issues from the start. So they've both had a little bit of misfortune, but still, they're so far ahead of everybody else in that championship.
At this stage, though, I would argue that maybe Berneke is on the front foot a little bit coming into this one. He's won 3 out of the last 4 races, Nico. That's a lot of confidence to be carrying into the late part of the season like this.
Yeah, it's always great to get that momentum in the last bit of the championship, and he will try to continue that. But if there is just one thing getting wrong, and Diogo Pinto will be there, and yeah, as we've seen, it's very, very close in the championship, and there is no one in a position making any mistakes. So there is the question is, can they both do a zero mistake job? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the case towards the end of the season here. It's about that consistency as well. You got to be in it to win it, so to speak here. And if you do make that mistake, you're going to cycle back through the field. You're going to hemorrhage a lot of points to your competitor. So hopefully these guys are able to keep things close, both in the points and on track as well, to set us up for a great finale at the track that I cannot name coming into the final round of the season. I almost let it slip there, Paul. I almost let it slip, but this is basically just setting the stage now for that final event, right?
Oh, absolutely, and they'll be hoping to keep it that close together. Diogo Pinto, he needs to just get one over Max and try and get back to the fore of this championship. But with so little being between the two of them, one little mistake, one issue, one piece of contact that gives them damage that drops them down the field could be huge at this point of the championship. And Diogo and Max both, they want to be pushing and going for wins, but at the same point, they don't want to risk their championship either. It's a balancing act that they need to do.
It absolutely is. And, well, let's see what happens here today then, because Diogo Pinto, he is that driver that's 2 points behind at the moment. So, again, he just needs to do that a little bit better than Bernica coming into these final couple of rounds. Another thing I do want to talk about as well is, well, what was potentially the battle for P3. Of course, that is our final prize-paying position here in this series. Christopher Dambeats, after a very, very competent round at the Nürburgring, still has all of the advantages in that particular battle, especially given Gianni Vecchio not going to be racing today. So his closest competitor on track in terms of points will then be David Williams, who needs a stellar result here today to even have a chance of getting that P3 heading into the final round. Paul, this one's yours.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, David, he had such a nightmare last time out, didn't he? It was just such a bad race for him. He was looking to really get himself that opportunity of getting third place after the meteoric rise through the field he'd made throughout this season to then have that disappointment at the last round. The good thing for him, though, is, and the best thing for any driver, and I'm sure Nico will touch on this, if you have a bad week, you don't want to be just sat there stewing on that for a long time. You want to get back in the car and really make amends for that. So David will be glad that we're racing 1 week after the other.
Yeah, it's super important just to stay positive in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to let you continue there, Nico, just on the explanation of, you know, how maybe instants start to settle in the mind and just start to really put you off your game. A lot of drivers seem to find that as a bit of a hurdle to try and get over, at least a harder hurdle than some other drivers. But
This is just all about, as you say, acclimatizing yourself to the conditions and seeing what difference there is compared to what you've been practicing with throughout the week. So, yeah, these drivers, they're a high enough standard that won't affect them. I mean, I'm not going to get into my favourite subject but Max taking a wide exit out that final corner before practicing a qualifying time, and this is the time now where these drivers will just be using this as a chance of practicing that hot lap, that qualifying lap, of preparing the car on the out lap and then going for it to really set themselves into a rhythm into qualifying.
And Nico, I'm not entirely sure if you've driven here in the real world or not, but either way, just maybe give us some tips here as we watch the cars go around. You know, what do the drivers have to do to be fast here at the Red Bull Ring?
Yeah, I've done quite a few races on Red Bull Ring, and right now that section here downhill is. Oh, let's move on here. First turn, you have to clip that inner curb, and then you will end up on the left sausage curb, which supports you a bit, and then it's all about taking a great exit up the road, a very long straight, and then I guess that's the best point for overtaking You can take an inner line or a wider line. Both is possible. So if you're a little too light on the brakes, you can take the little wider line and position your car a bit differently. For the exit, again, the exit is important. Another straight, and that's the section I just said. Down to Rausch corner. It's downhill, and the rear gets quite light there. You have to clip that in a curb, and then you move to the outside and use all the curb on the outside. Sometimes you could go there into the gravel bed. Same as in the next left-hander, quite a fast one, and then you stay on the right curb. Stay there, and then you move in the final sector, taking all the speed through that section. It's quite a big curb on the right-hand side, I have to say. And then second last corner, really challenging, also in terms of track limits on the left. That was a bit too wide. Staying on the left and there into the hole, and taking again all the speed on to the straight. So traction is very important, brake is very important, and straight line speed.
1:31.849 for Timo Hayden, which is a personal best in the session. Of course, we are still in practice here, everyone. Qualifying is coming up in about 8.5 minutes time here. And a potentially pretty important qualifying as well to give you that track position heading into the first race, because we might be seeing just a little bit of draft lock here, Paul. Of course, you know, it is typically considered one of those tracks where the draft is so potent, but I have to wonder how it will keep everyone together here, because we have seen on previous races at draft tracks, the leader still be able to break away.
Yeah, it's a funny track, is this, with it being so much high speed and full throttle, as Nico said, 80% full throttle. You really use that slipstream of the car in front of you to as much of your advantage as possible, and try and make the most of it. And these drivers, I mean, they are pushing the limits to the extreme around this track. But one thing about this track that you don't really necessarily can tell in the sim or in television is the elevation changes. There's a lot of uphill, and it's steep uphill into turn 3. And that downhill braking, as Nico said, the back gets a little bit light, and you go back down into the bowl, then come back up out of the bowl towards the penultimate corner, before again heading downhill. There's so much elevation change that these drivers have to contend with. It looks a relatively simple track when you look at the map of it, but it doesn't give you that impression of the height difference between the top and the bottom of the circuit.
And of course, Nico, in this situation, in this series, all the drivers are running the same setup. You know, they can't change anything to do with the configuration of the car to be able to deal with all these heavy, these big elevation changes. They can't tweak the car for a certain portion of the track more than anything else. They're all given basically the same setup. Of course, you can change the brake bias and the tire pressures here. Those are the only really two things that you can change on the car in a fixed setup event. So that arguably makes it a bit tricky around here, because the car might not be feeling 100% coming through some sections.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's the task for a driver to adapt on that. So yeah, I mean, it's a fixed setup. It's the same for everyone. Same in real racing world. It's the biggest challenge for us with the same tire for everyone. Nürburgring, for example, you can choose the manufacturer, but on most of the races, for example, also in Carrera Cup, with just one tire, it's the Michelin tire for everyone. And yeah, if your driving style does not fit to that tire, you just have to change the way of driving. And in the end of the day, if that setup or fixed setup isn't really going in your way, you have to change your driving style, and that makes a good racing driver in the end. In sim racing, but also in the real world. So they had quite a bit of time to prepare themselves on that track with that setup. On the final, it will be a little different, because then, yeah, they will just get to know which track it is. I think 48 hours before, and you know, the practice time is a bit more limited, and that will be a huge challenge then.
Yeah, it will be. Just that random curveball that's thrown in at the very end of the season, and well, may the most adaptable driver win, I suppose, here in that one. And well, at least Berneke and Pinto will certainly be hoping that they're going to be holding all the advantages coming into that final round. Maybe they're hoping it's a track that they know and love and prefer in these cars, but we just don't know at the moment. But still a lot of anticipation heading into that final round, no matter really what happens here today. But of course, we would prefer those points leaders to be as close as they are now heading into that final round. But for the moment, we got just under 5 minutes left in qualifying, here, in practice, excuse me, here, Paul. And, well, Berneke still top of the pile by 1/10 of a second ahead of Diogo Pinto for the moment. But, you know, being within 1/10 of a second, well, in race pace terms, that's still going to mean you're in the draft.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned it, we might get a bit of draft lock where if the car at the head of the field can successfully block and defend, but then everybody else is all getting slipstream off them, it's just going to end up with all the field being stuck together, which in some cases can be absolutely magnificent racing, in some cases it can be a bit of carnage. Personally, I'd prefer the former rather than the latter. But Berneke, as you mentioned right at the top of the broadcast, he just seems to have this level of confidence right now in the series. He's won the last 3 of 4. He wants to win these 2 races here today to give him the best opportunity going into that final round. And you mentioned about the track, about we don't know, well, you do, Connery, but we don't know what the final track will be until 48 hours before. Nico, this is a question that I have for you. If you're a driver and you get told the news, right, we're going to, I don't know, we're going to the Hungaroring, for instance. I'm not saying it is, but this is just an example. If it's going to the Hungaroring and it's a track that you love, how much of a difference does that make if it's a track that you really enjoy compared to somewhere you think, it's not my strongest?
Yeah, it can be a huge difference, of course, especially with a fixed setup. If you have prepared yourself on that track before, yeah, it's kind of a gamble, of course, but it can make a huge difference. I mean, we also see it in F1 racing and Grand Prix racing. There are some tracks, yeah, certain drivers win all the time. I don't know, Kimi Räikkönen, he always loved racing in Spa, and he even won there with slower cars in certain years in Ferrari, for example, and that's the case for everyone, for every single racing driver. There are tracks you like more than others, and in the end of the day, this could be also a championship decider. Yeah, absolutely.
And Paul, you and I both know, at least in the case of Maximilian Berneke, he currently has not won a top-level sim racing event that is a solo event. Of course, he's won world championships and some such as part of a team, but as far as a solo event, seems like he's always the bridesmaid and never the bride, because he came second in the 2019 iteration of the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup. There was another manufacturer's 2020 final that he also came second in, and then at the Porsche Summit, which launched Porsche's sim racing and esports program, he also came second there. That was in part a team event as well, but still, it must be for Maximilian Berneke the desire coming into that final round of finally getting himself a trophy, a solo trophy, which in a way I think he does deserve, because he's you know, he's always been one of these top drivers, at least over the past couple of years on iRacing, but he hasn't really had that much to show for it apart from the achievements with his team.
Yeah, it's quite surprising when you say that. You think that Max has been at the top of sim racing for the best part, what, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years? You know, he's been up thereabouts, pushing for championships, and yes, he won a team's championship, as you say, but that individual championship, if he can get that monkey off his back, then that would be a really good, real sort of boon for him to be able to then go into other championships, say the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup next year, and have a real confidence about himself and his ability to win a championship. Because once you win that championship and you get that first one, it's kind of like races, winning races. Once you get that first one, you know what it takes to do it, and you can go out and then repeat that.
Absolutely. So there we go. Practice is now over for round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland here at the Red Bull Ring. We will be very shortly heading in towards our qualifying. Of course, drivers will get themselves 10 minutes total to be able to do 3 flying laps here today, and well, they'll be able to do those 3 flying laps all on their own. It's solo qualifying here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland, so they're not affected by anyone else and cannot affect anyone else. It is just the drivers versus the track. And well, of course, there are some real World Series that do work in this way, with each driver going out on their own to set a qualifying lap and then just sort of taking it turns in that. But the vast majority of the series just have it as open qualifying. So at least as a real life driver, Nico, this might be a little bit of a welcome break from usual chaos of qualifying.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, usual qualifying is always with other competitors, but for example, if you compete in a Super Pole shootout, then you're always alone and competing against the track only and not against other drivers. But yeah, I mean, in real life, most of the times qualifying is always mixed up with other drivers, and that's very challenging to find the right spot to warm up your tires still in the best way. And I mean, if there is the chance to grab some to get some toe and slipstream, especially around those high-speed tracks, it will be huge advantage. But at the same time, the car in front, yeah, kind of distracts a bit the air, and you will lose downforce. So in reality, it's always, you know, not that easy to find the right spot for you. But yeah, I mean, driving by my own and racing against the track is always something special.
Ricardo Ferreira is the driver that we're watching head his way through to start his first flying lap. Of course, a bit teasing a little bit with the track limits here. It seems like the stewards in their supplementary regulations and their driver's briefing have said that the track limits are generally pretty well policed here automatically by iRacing. It is using, of course, iRacing's new track limits feature, so that the track limits are actually judged by the tires rather than the center of the car. So you can have, of course, 2 tires inside the track limits, and it will still not give you an instant point. So you won't invalidate your lap that way. But so that's less of a workload, I suppose, for the stewards, just letting the automated system handle things here at the Red Bull Ring. But as we continue on board here with Ricardo Ferreira, good to get that banker lap in, of course, in the early part of the session, Paul. But for Ricardo, of course, he's I think he's been in the vast majority of races so far this season. I'll just double check that stat for you. But for Ferreira, it's been pretty decent going here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. And yes, I can confirm he has competed in every race.
You keep on mentioning
the temperatures and pressures into your tires, so that's why the qualifying scrutiny system was introduced. And of course, we have supplementary regulations here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland that doesn't allow any tire warming on pit lane or on pit entry or exit. So that's what the 222 has been caught for. So they've been asked to take the tow back to pit lane and not continue on with their lap. So that is Lucas Lippert, who's down towards the very bottom of the order here in qualifying for the moment. There is Maximilian Benneker, though, as he's heading his way through to complete one of his flying laps here. Of course, hasn't been able to put a flying lap in just yet. His first lap was invalid. Let's see if his second lap, 1, is valid, and 2, where it puts him. A 1:34.7 coming across the line. That's not valid either. This is dangerous now for Benneker, Nico, because he only has 1 flying lap now to get his spot on the grid.
Yeah, very dangerous, and now he has to be a little more conservative, which will cost him probably 1 or few tenths. But yeah, you have to set a lap time, otherwise you will start from the end of the grid, and that would be a huge disaster.
I just want to say, I did notice in the exit of turn 4 on that previous lap, he was on the brakes, he was slowing down. I think just he realised that he'd invalidated his lap and just trying to get as much heat into the brakes, which can then radiate through the tyre. So he's more on it this time. It looks like he's okay for the time being, but this is something that he doesn't need. And Christopher Dam beats, though. What a lap time from him.
Great stuff for Christopher Dam Beats, getting himself up into a provisional pole position for race number 1, but does Pinto have an answer to it? He's on his final lap as well in terms of qualifying. Benneker has his final chance to get himself on the starting grid. This one needs to be valid here. Benneker can't afford to be starting at the very back of the grid here today. That gives a huge advantage to Diogo Pinto in the championship. Careful with the track limits coming through the penultimate corner as well. Benneker is obviously still pushing on this one, not being too conservative on his final lap here. Across the line, a 1:30.8, and it is Vassner for provisional pole position. Pinto comes across the line 11 thousandths of a second behind his championship competitor. That's close.
That's incredible. It shows, though, that even under pressure there, Benneker can produce the goods right there. And yeah, I'm tip of the hat to him. That was an incredible lap.
Yeah, just an incredible performance, especially when you're in a situation where if you get that lap, if you have that lap invalidated, you're going to be starting at the very back of the starting grid there, Nico. Like Paul said, it's an incredible lap under so much pressure as well.
Yeah, that makes a difference between a good and a very, very good racing driver. I mean, performing under such a high level of pressure is something you have to handle it, you have to deal with it. But to nail it, as Benneker has been to every single race, every single qualifying, they almost do a zero mistake job, and they're so close together, and by far the best in the championship, and that's really magnificent. Those two, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy how good some of these drivers are. Here's Gael Valero then. He hasn't set himself a lap so far. Hopefully this one's valid as he heads his way across the line now, and it's good enough for 8th place on the starting grid. Shuffles everyone else back just a notch. That mid-pack though, Paul, looking very, very close. So you look at where Valero is at the moment. He's got Muth not too far behind him. Lippert is only a couple of thousandths of a second behind Muth, and then Koss is a couple of hundredths of a second behind Lippert. So that region of around about P8 down, P11, P12, P13, that's going to be a bloodbath today.
Well, let's hope it's not that, but when you consider that there's less than 1 second covering Maximilian Benneker down to Adam Volkovic in 13th place, it shows the tightness of this grid. But you are absolutely right there, Connery, to point that out. Just a couple of tenths covering 8th down to 13th. This is an incredibly tight field. Timo Hayden is a driver who has not set any laps at all in this qualifying. And here is Matthias Seibels coming across the line and does not improve. And he will not be able to set another lap because, of course, in this qualifying, in this series, when that clock strikes 0, that is it.
30 seconds left to go, and well, like I said, not a lot of opportunities to be able to get laps in. I think everyone is pretty much done as well. I'm not seeing anyone on an active fast lap at the moment. So what you see on the left-hand side of your screen, at least briefly, was the starting grid for race number 1. So we'll let this session tick down and over, and we'll get ourselves transferred over into race number 1. Of course, we have 2 races here today, both 30 minutes long. No reverse grid for race 2. That's just based on the results for race number 1. But here's the grid for race number 1. Then Maximilian Benecke gets one over Diogo Pinto in the battle for qualifying, and potentially the battle for the championship as well, as both of those Porsche 24 driven by Redline drivers will occupy the front row. Christopher Dambeat makes it Redline 1, 2, 3. And David Williams on the outside of that second row for VRS Quanta Sim Sports. Florian Lebigri there in P5 for RHG Esports Junior. You have Ricardo Ferrara in P6 here today. Cycling things down, you have Philip van der Herk in P7 with Gal Valero in P8. Daniel Moof starts in 9th with Lucas Lippert in 10th. Igor Kos starts in 11th with Simone Passoni in P12 today. Adam Volkovich starts in 13th with Lucas Lang in 14th. Matthias Siebels in 15th with David DeWitt in P16. Pedro Regueira in P17 with Marcel Fritsch in P18 and Tim Bellica in P19. Timo Hayden, not listed, but he will start in the 20th spot here today. So, drivers getting themselves ready, many of them already occupying their spots on the starting grid here today, but it's our championship battle on the front row. Who's going to get the good run down in towards turn 1, and, well, maybe more importantly, who's going to get the run and the position down in towards turn 3, one of our big action zones here today. But just waiting for the rest of those cars to get themselves ready and get themselves set on the starting grid, of course. Important to get a good start here in these cars, especially. They're very tricky to get off the line with the clutch model that they have, but we're just about ready to go racing here for round number 7 at the Red Bull Ring in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. We are underway here in Spielberg. Great start from Maximilian Benecke from the front row. He leads them down in towards turn number 1. Diogo Pinto, second place. Big challenge for third, though, as David Williams looks down the inside of Christopher Dambeat for that third place on the starting grid. Looks like everyone's clean coming through turn number 1 for the first time, and now it's that long run down in towards turn 3, side by side, deeper in the pack. The leaders have gotten themselves away well and spaced out as well as they head into turn 3 for the first time, Paul.
Oh, David Williams, lovely move to the inside for third place. We've got a little bit of contact between Ferreira and one of your others as well. There's Libera as well. But yeah, these drivers, they've got themselves going. Nice clean start. No silly shenanigans out of turn 1 or turn 3. This is good to see. And Galo Valero, well, he's got the best seat in the house to see all the action in front of him. He wants to be at the front of this right now.
Absolutely. The privateer driver in P number 9 at the moment doesn't have a team to his name. At least he has officially registered with the series. Locking onto the back of the 108 Van der Herk there a little bit further down the road. And now we get to see our first example, perhaps, of how the draft may or may not keep all of these cars together here as they head their way through those final couple of corners. Careful with the track limits. The system does give you a slowdown penalty if you push too wide here, but there is a Daniel Moof fighting for position just that little bit further down the field, and he'll look to try and complete the passing towards turn number 1. We're going to get to see 3 wide as Valero goes down the inside of both of them into turn 1. He's already got one position done, and he's looking to try and back the other as well. Great fighting here, Nico.
Yeah, that's the Red Bull Ring, yeah. Long straights and then tight corners. Makes racing interesting.
Whoa, race lead. Pinto's through on Benecke. So important in terms of the championship. And here comes David Williams as well, because Benecke didn't get the momentum off the corner due to that fighting with Pinto. And now Williams might split the 2 championship leaders here. Benecke trying to commit down the inside here. He will be able to stay ahead. He's got to make sure he keeps within the track limits and doesn't go out into the gravel there. But that's Pinto making the pass for the race lead. And, well, at the end of this race, if he finishes this way, he'll be leading the championship into race 2.
This is tremendous. This is what we've been seeing all season between the two of them. Pinto, he's not shy. He's still afraid to make a move, and he made that move into turn 3. Brilliant stuff from him, and that's got him to the front of the field. Here's the replay then. Let's have a look. Looks to the inside. Late on the brakes. Can brake so incredibly late into that hairpin, and Beneke tried to get the cut under, but Pinto was there on the apex.
Also, Nico, there's a little bit of contact between the two of them as well. Of course, the stewards will look at incidents over the course of this race. We do have live stewards who can give time penalties, drive-through penalties, and some such, but a little bit of a love tap there between the two teammates. That's the last thing you want in racing, isn't it, Nico, to have a little bit of argy-bargy with your teammate?
Absolutely. I mean, those are the rivals fighting for the championship, and on the same time they're racing for the same team. Makes things even more interesting, of course. And if they touch a bit, yeah, it's kind of a very very difficult situation for them. But that was all fine. I mean, a bit of contact in those cars is normal, and in the end of the day, that's part of the racing.
And hopefully that isn't you know, too much for Beneke to be concerned about with the contact to the front ends. Of course, you do have to be careful about bodywork damage here at the Red Bull Ring due to the high speed. You can't have any, well, excess drag on the car, shall we say, Paul. But it looks like everything's fine with that number 11 at the moment. He can just sit inside the slipstream of his teammate and championship rival here. It's very easy to tell the difference between the two cars here, Paul, because Pinto has those bright green wheels.
Yeah, certainly you can be able to read at night with those wheels, that's for sure. But yeah, Beneke, I mean, Rubin's racing at the end of the day.
Yep.
You know, a little bit of swap of paintwork. Fortunately, the teammate, so it keeps the paintwork looking the same. But yeah, Beneke, look at that, fastest lap. He's in the slipstream. He's being able to focus on just keeping it clean, keeping it on track limit, and he's going to be pushing very, very hard now to try and keep with them. You can see the points difference on the live standings in the top right-hand corner there. So as you mentioned, Connery, Pinto to the head of the championship if it stays as it is. But David Williams, he's the wild card in all of this. He wants a really, really good weekend at this one. He wants to score some big points over Christopher Dan Beets, who's right behind him. He'll want to go for those front two places.
Absolutely. That is definitely in Williams' best interests at the moment, especially considering his competitor, the third, is, like you said, sitting right on his back bumper at the moment. So the more cars he can put between himself and Dan Beets, the better. But it's going to be a bunch of Redline cars that he'll have to deal with here. He is the lone VRS Commander Sim Sports car in that battle, and of course in this entire racing season as well. Looking back further through the field, though, battle for 13th going on between Lucas Lang, Simone Passoni as well, and, well, you can count Gregoire and David DeVitt in this one, as well as the draft is keeping a lot of these mid-pack runners together here, Nico.
Yeah, and it's very important to, you know, to stay in the slipstream, to not overdrive your car, overdrive the tires, especially being in such a close competition with the others in midfield. And yeah, you have to keep cool with the car and prepare mostly for the exits, to be nicely positioned and to have a good exit and to be able to fight for a good position in front of a corner, like we see here.
Yeah, so that's Valero trying to fight with Daniel Muth, so it's the 3 and the 53. Looking to go wheel to wheel as they head their way down the straight, down the hill here at the Red Bull Ring. Looks like Muth's been able to keep himself ahead. Valero still looks to the inside there for the right-hander, but Muth is not going to be scared out of line there, so keeping himself cool, calm and collected despite being under a little bit of pressure from the number 3 Porsche behind him. We've still got a pretty long way to go in this race, though. Of course, 30-minute event. We'll have race number 2 after this one as well. That will also be 30 minutes long. So there's really no rush in making these moves at the moment unless you're sort of caught out of position.
Yeah, certainly they'll be trying to move forward wherever they can. But as you say, with plenty of time remaining in this one, it really is going to be a case of just trying to move forward in all of this. But yeah, these drivers, they've been in this championship for long enough now. They know what it takes to be in this series. And yes, there will be there are some newcomers here as well, but definitely a lot of them know what it takes. That front four, they're still together at the moment, and then you've got that big queue of cars from 7th down to 18th.
Yep, you do. So Pinto and Beneke stuck together like glue here. Hopefully not actually making contact that like they have done already. But Beneke, I get the feeling he's just biding his time a little bit here. There's no point in really getting to the race lead at this point, I'd hazard a guess, considering that's how easy it is to try and make the move back with a late braking move into the very heavy braking zones here at this track. So Beneke is just waiting and planning for the moment, I get the feeling. So great patience here from Beneke not to rush things, although he is making himself quite big in the mirrors of Pinto there, Nico, and well, I guess that's one way to apply a lot of pressure to the driver ahead of you. Just don't give them room to breathe.
Yeah, but on the same time, when they are teammates, and in my opinion, they should push together to make a gap to Williams, and then in the end, in the last 5 or 10 minutes, they can fight out for the win. But I think the most important thing is to get away from Williams and to make a gap. But Williams is there, and if they fight each other, they will lose time. So that's also a question of strategy, and especially in those tracks like Monza or Red Bull Ring, you always gain so much time in the slipstream. But let's have a look. Is he going for the lead?
Yeah, looks like Beneke down the inside of Pinto. This battle, but part 2 here in race number 1 as they'll go wheel to wheel down the straight once again. Of course, David Williams is lurking in the background to see if he can pick up any pieces just in case this one goes sour. But Beneke into the downhill section now on the inside. Pinto continuing to carry some momentum there out onto the curb, but it's simply not enough. That is Maximilian Beneke back up into the race lead. Of course, he did start pole position here in this one. So a swap around in terms of the race lead, a swap around in terms of the championship once again. And here's the onboard with David Williams here. Paul, he has a lot to gain here, just in case this thing goes wrong with the front 2.
He certainly does, doesn't he? He's got the best seat in the house, that's for sure. But if I'm Pinto, I'm not too concerned about that switch right now. As long as you can stay within the wheel tracks of the leader, then you're in a very, very good position. Beneke taking that final corner a little bit wider than the rest, but David Williams that we're on board with, he's just, again, showing that patience game. He's very experienced in this car. Of course, the venerable 991 that will be heading for retirement very soon. This car, he's known it ever since we started racing with Porsche, and in fact, Pinto making a move for the lead up into turn 3.
And squeezes through. There's another little love tap though. It forces Beneke wide, so this might be the opportunity that Williams needs now to be able to complete the pass and get up into P2. He has a runner's speed down into the next braking zone, but let's see if he's able to convert here deep down the inside. He's got to be careful not to outbrake himself and cause an accident with the 2 red line cars. Here's the view from Christopher Dambeat being our cameraman at the moment. They get so close to P2. There's a little shove back from Beneke as well. He didn't like that his personal space was being invaded.
I think Beneke was just saying, I'm not having any of that, David. Get out of my way. I think that was that.
A bit of, well, signalling going on between the two here, Nico. I get the feeling with the body language between the cars there.
Yeah, they're both taking quite a high risk. I didn't expect that, to be honest. But of course, I mean, Pinto is looking for Williams now. That would be the best thing for him to see Williams getting past Beneke and to get another rival in between them to make up more championship points and to close the gap or to even extend the lead in. Yeah, it's all about a very close championship, and we see very exciting battles.
I did notice, by the way, sorry Connery, I did notice Pinto, when they came out of turn 3, was giving the slipstream to David Williams down towards turn 4. there's definitely no team orders happening here in Redline, that's for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned it, Paul, because that was the exact same thing I was going to point out there. So, you know, teams mean nothing when it's an individual championship, isn't it? So we'll see some battling further down. This is, let's see, number 73 involved in that one, I believe.
That's Lang.
Just have to wait and see. Yeah, that is Lucas Lang. So this is battle for 12th going on. With Koss going around the outside here, and it's not entirely successful in doing so. Can still follow relatively closely coming into the middle sector with those two very high-speed left-handers here at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg. But looks like that Lang has got that position on lockdown for the moment, but he is leading the trainer cars around.
Certainly is, and there's been that little bit of separation, hasn't there? Lang has fallen off of the back of Adam Volkovic, so you've got a 5-car train from 7th to 11th, and then this one that we're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen, Lucas Lang, all the way down to Matthias Seibels. So 12th to 17th together in a queue of traffic. Oh, and on the left-hand side, just the race lead. It's nothing too important. As we see more side-by-side action going on into turn 1.
Passoni looking good for the position. Oh, who gets a whack of oversteer coming off the corner. There was a car behind also looking to squeak through. That was the number 6 car of DeWitt here. As we're going to go 3 wide down in towards turn number 3 potentially. You got the 106 ahead. That's Regu Ira on the outside now, as Passoni looks to go down the inside, and there's contact, and that's why you don't go 3 wide into there. Causes a bit of a pile up on the exit of the turn 3 there, Nico.
I was just about to say it's hot racing, but we didn't see a big crash yet. But yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate you can't go there 3 wide. It's just not possible. It will always end up in any crash at that corner. But yeah, that's part of the game sometimes. With the race controller, we'll have a look for sure.
I did notice David did actually just hang back and wait for the car that he hit to pull away again, so he didn't gain a position through all of that, but he has cost positions for them to fall back. So definitely the race control will have a look at that and possibly look at a time penalty.
Yeah, the steers haven't really had all that much to do over the course of this race. Of course, we only had that one decision from qualifying about the pit lane for the 222, trying to warm the tires on pit lane, which is not allowed in this series. But there's another look at the incident then. As you can see, the 6th of it looking down the inside at the very last moment, and there was only one way that was going to end, unfortunately.
It's a typical scene on that corner. Yeah. Hit the competitor in front, and in the end of the day, he spun, and yeah, it's pretty clear whose mistakes that was, definitely.
Lippert, Smooth, Van den Hoek also involved in this, and you got Valero, excuse me, in the battle for 7th as well. I just saw the swap around for P3. Seems like Dan Beats has been able to get ahead of Williams here, so that's a bit of a change in your leading train. Meanwhile, these mid-back battles still going on, shall we say. Daniel Muth versus Van den Hoek coming through the right-handers here. And, well, let's see who comes out on top in this battle, because they're almost level down in towards the middle sector. But I think Daniel Muth will just have to cut his losses. He still hasn't got a title sponsor on that car. He still has the Your ad here on the side of that Porsche. So seemingly no luck in terms of trying to find a sponsor for that car at the moment. But we wish him all the best in trying to find a team or a title sponsor.
We're obviously not doing a good enough job of selling his car to potential sponsors, but this lead battle is the fact that Max Benneker runs so close through those final few corners. I mean, he's literally on the tailgate of his rival in front in Pinto. How he can keep that close and not there be any contact between the two of them is absolutely incredible. There's the move for third, and yeah, David Williams just went deep into the hairpin at turn number 3.
Well, we were talking about mistakes in the pre-race, weren't we? And that's just an example of how you know, how those mistakes can sometimes just mean a whole bunch, because now Williams losing points in the championship to Dan Beats in that rather far off battle for third, but it's still a possibility that we're going to be talking about in towards the final race. You can see the points up on screen for you now. There we go. As the gap extends, shall we say, between Dan Beats and Williams. But for now, for the championship lead, Pinto is ahead. But you know, these guys at the front might swap around again, Nico, and that will make the swap of the championship again as well. It's fantastic to have things this close at this stage after so many races. Absolutely,
and it's the best way, seeing that fight for the championship. If they're P1 and P2, that makes things exciting. And you know, if Pinto wins that race, it's clear Pinto is going to have the championship lead, and if Beneke wins that race, he will extend the lead. So that makes it very, very interesting, and especially going into the final in a few weeks. Very exciting, and I think that probably the lead will change, but not only for once, but probably for 2 or 3 more times. Yeah, let's have a look then.
Yeah, and the end of this race will be particularly telling, I think, because yes, these guys have gone side by side. Yes, they've swapped positions a few times already so far in this one, but the only pass that matters is the one that gets you to the checkered flag first, isn't it, Paul? All this is just rehearsal.
Absolutely, but it's a little bit of one-upmanship potentially that we're seeing here as well. It's oh, you've made a move on me. Okay, well, I can make a move on you as well. And you want to play that little bit of a psychological game as well. And right now, Beneke, with him just sitting behind, he's not feeling under pressure from behind now, because he's got Christopher Dan Beats, his teammate, behind him. He doesn't need to worry about attack from behind. He can just focus solely in front and keep that pressure on, keep Pinto under that pressure to maybe force a mistake. But we've seen so many times in this championship that Pinto can deal with that pressure and keep it in front.
Well, all the evidence you need is, well, his dominance at Hockenheim. For example, he was absolutely untouchable there at that race at an event where you would say it's, well, just as drafty as this one. At least you have a short arena section where you can get a little bit more mechanical grip and be able to differentiate in terms of the driver's skill a little bit more. But either way, he was still able to pull away at that race. Not so much here in this one, of course. Maybe a little bit of a simpler circuit compared to Hockenheim. That's kept all the lap times close and kept some of the packs together. But look at how close Beneke is, basically pressing the nose of that Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car into the rear bumper of his teammate in the 1-2-1. They can't get much closer, can they?
Well, if they did, they'd be making contact, and we don't want to see that between the two of them. We want to see a nice, clean race here, but yes, definitely tremendous action that we're seeing, and yeah, these are drivers who are competing at the highest level, and the millimeter accuracy of being able to run so closely together is absolutely amazing.
So we are in sort of winding down into the final third of race number 1 now. Of course, we have another 30-minute race coming up where we'll be doing this all again, it seems. So plenty of action to come in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. This is round number 7. It's the penultimate race weekend, shall we say, before we head into the final in the middle of October. A decent driver break, but someone who's not having a break at the moment is Beneke, as he's looking all over the back of his teammate into the braking zone at turn 3, but not able to make anything work that time around. He'll have a good run out at turn 3 to potentially make something happen down into the next braking zone, but this is all planning right now, Nico, and well, maybe a plan actually coming together for Beneke as he sends it down the inside. Here comes the cutback from Pinto, and he stays ahead. So maybe that was a bit more of an explorative move there from Beneke, seeing how late he can actually break into that.
Yeah, you have to try that at one point. You know, it's 8 minutes or 7.5 minutes to go, and at one point you have to try it. And you know, if there is the race deciding and probably also championship deciding move at one point, then probably on the last few laps, you have to, as you said, you have to try and to see what's possible, what's not possible, and it's better trying now and probably losing a bit of ground than losing the car on one of the last laps and fighting for the final result then. Yeah.
4-car pack then, in terms of the race lead. Of course, all those podium positions still yet set in stone. They can really finish in any order between those 4 coming across the line, depending on the exact set of circumstances into the final couple of laps. So just sort of waiting with bated breath here until those final laps and those final battles to materialize. The anxiety in the driver's seats of those cars at the moment, or rather the seats of the sim rigs at home for these drivers, Paul, it must be pretty palpable at this point, and we're not even in the final race of the season yet.
Yeah, there'll be heart rates will be elevated, that's for sure. And how many times have we seen in this championship as well, into the final 8 minutes or so, that things start to heat up and business picks up out there on track? And right now it's just sat there simmering, it's waiting for an opportunity. And Max Benecke, he's actually dropped back a little bit now. Is this a case of him trying to just get himself a little bit of space so that he can get a run on Pinto in front of him through either the last corner or through turn number 1? That could potentially be something, because if you run too close to the car in front, it's very difficult to then get a run out of the corner.
We did have a steward's decision come through. I think it was that 3 wide moment that we saw in the middle of the race involving David DeWitt and a couple of others. David DeWitt got himself a 5-second post-race time penalty for causing that contact. He was the car on the inside going for a gap that was really never going to materialize, so I completely understand that penalty. Of course, that won't affect his starting position for race number 2. So the starting grid for race number 2 will be as they come across the line in this race number 1 without any penalties applied. So the penalties will only be applied after both races are done here, Paul.
Yeah, and crucially for David, he is actually over 5 seconds ahead of the driver in 18th. So he's actually got that gap there to be able to get that penalty and still hold on to his place. That's crucial for him. But this battle up front, it's really intriguing. We've got battling further down as well with Gal Valero still in 7th place, still holding on ahead of Lucas Lippert, Van den Herk and Daniel Muth. So tremendous battling all the way through this field. It's what we've grown to expect in the series, really.
Yeah, it is just incredible stuff. Every single event has had some big events to talk about, it feels like, here in this season. Of course, on the left side, you got the battle for the race lead and championship lead at the moment, and Pinto, I get that feeling. I mean, you mentioned Benecke dropping back a little bit earlier, Paul, but it seems like that gap is continuing to extend here. Maybe Pinto trying to stretch his legs here at this stage to make sure that gap is big enough back to 2nd place so that he's not in too much danger coming into the final couple of laps, and he's doing a very, very good job at it right now. It's still a big task to try and break that slipstream. I think Benecke, all in all, is still in this for race number 1, but Pinto trying his level best to try and get away at the front here, Nico.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 0.4 of a second, and before it was really nose to tail, and he got a bit of an advantage over the last couple of laps, or let's say 1.5 laps. Benecke did a little mistake, and now it's about Pinto needs to extend that lead to be sure winning that race. And in the middle sector, he's really, really quick. He just made up another 0.2, and I think Benecke has to look back and probably needs to defend against Dambits.
Yeah, well, let's see if Dambits does go on the offensive here. He might not have no choice, really, because of how close Williams is behind. So if you're not fighting the car ahead of you, you're defending from the car behind you. And sometimes the best form of defense is the offense. But we'll get to see how that materializes coming into these final couple of laps. 2 minutes 25 as they head their way across the line. That's the time on the clock. Of course, they're doing around about 131, mid-131s in terms of lap times here today. So it's going to be, well, that time across the line is 2 to go, Paul.
Yeah, 2 to go exactly. So Beneke, if he's got anything in this, he's going to have to start closing that gap back up. There was about 600ths of a second between the two of them in terms of lap time last time around. But Pinto, crucially, has been just that little bit quicker. Just a few hundredths, but he's just doing that little bit quicker lap on lap. I think maybe he's feeling a little bit more comfortable at the front of the field rather than being behind. And Beneke, he's got to just pull out something in the second half of this lap here, get that gap closed right up again, and have a go on the final lap of the race.
Because for Pinto, at least, a gap of, what, hovering around 5 or 6 tenths of a second at the moment is probably a way more comfortable of a gap than he was expecting heading in towards the final lap here. So the ball's definitely with Diogo Pinto at the moment to, well, finish this race in first and also get himself the championship lead heading into race number 2 here for round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. So across the line they come then, this leading pack to start the final lap. Pinto still with that 5 or 6 tenths of a second gap. Of course, Beneke will close up a little bit down the straights here, but I don't think it's going to be quite enough for him to challenge at the end of this event, Nico. I think Pinto might have just done just about enough to keep ahead and take the race win for race 1 here, but we still have about 2/3 of a lap to go.
Yeah, I think Pinto should be safe. Half a second. I mean, before they were nose to tail and probably half a tenth away from each other, and now since a couple of laps, yeah, the distance or the gap is stable around half a second, and yeah, it's looking pretty stable over there. The first 4, it's all yeah, organized, and I think that's it probably. Because here you can't really overtake, just with a very harsh maneuver, but they're all clever enough to not risk their car and to not risk the grip position for race 2. That's also a big point, yeah.
Just one more sequence of corners to go then for Diogo Pinto, and as long as he gets through there tidy, he'll come across the line to win the race here for race 1, and of course take the championship lead heading into race number 2. A great performance here in race 1 from Diogo Pinto. Started second, but comes home in first. The 121 Porsche 24, driven by Redline car, wins race 1 here at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg. Maximilian Beneke second place, Dan Beats in third to make it a Redline 1-2-3. Williams comes across the line in fourth. That Alpha B7 that we were seeing a little bit earlier on as well is indeed won by Valero over Lippert over Van der Herk. So that's the resolution to that particular fight as we wait for the rest of the cars now to head their way across the line. So a little bit of an anticlimactic finish here of race number 1, but I guess we're saving it all for race 2, Paul.
Well, you say anticlimax, it was tremendous driving by Pinto to be able to hold on at the front, keep under that pressure, and to then, in those final 5 laps, just pull away that gap. I just think that genuinely he'd looked after his tyres a little bit, kept them in the temperature range so that then he could pull on and through for those final few laps.
Okay, so here are the unofficial results from race number 1 at the Red Bull Ring. Diogo Pinto by over half a second back to his championship competitor of Maximilian Beneke. Pinto wins the race here. But Dan Beats in third place, getting himself another podium, which will help him out in the battle for third in the championship. He extends his points gap over David Williams, who finishes in fourth. Then you've got your second pack that was running around here today. You've got Ricardo Ferraro, who was really in a bit of no man's land, so not really a part of that second pack, but Florian Lebegri there in the RHG Junior car. He's in P6 with Galvalero in P7. German Sim Racing by VE by Hetzner. Lucas Lippert in P8 with full speed aheads. Philip van der Herk in P9. Daniel Muth in P10 here today. Adam Volkovic P11 with Lucas Lang in 12th. Igor Kos finishes in 13th with Pedro Regueira in P14. Timo Hayden finishes in 15th with Matthias Siebels in 16th. David DeWitt in P17, Tim Berlica in P18, and you have Marcel Fritsch in P19. Our only retirement here today was the 94 of Simone Passoni, and he will get that 20th spot classified. Fastest lap by Maximilian Bernicke, of course, on lap number 3. No bonus point for fastest lap, though, unfortunately, for Maximilian Bernicke, so that's just a little bit of bragging rights here at the end of race number 1. But we have to now set the scene for race number 2. Diogo Pinto, as a result of that race win, Nico, is now ahead in the championship. It's still by the smallest of margins, and we might have a bit of a repeat of one of the previous events here, the event that we had at Silverstone, where the championship lead changed for the first race at the end of the first race, and then changed back again at the end of the second race. So we might get a similar situation here.
It couldn't be more exciting for us, isn't it, watching it? So, yeah, those are the best races, those are the best championships, and I'm really enjoying it. Also, pretty nice as a driver. You're sitting behind that car, and you know, if you overtake him, you're in the lead in the championship or also in the race. That makes things more exciting also for you on the rig, in the race car in reality, but also in sim racing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have sort of gotten this race under our belts now, Paul. Looking into race number 2, is there any different approach that you'd like to see from the drivers into that second race, especially from those that are in the leading pack? Do you think the behavior that we saw in race 1 will carry over into race 2, so we'll just kind of have maybe a few swaps during the middle part of the race, but everyone's just waiting for those final couple of laps, or are we just going to go balls to the wall immediately?
It depends how you want to attack it, really. I think Max Bernicke knows that Pinto is the type of person who wants to lead from the front, and if he gets past as Bernicke, then Pinto will just at the first opportunity get back ahead. He likes to be at the front of the field with Pinto. Bernicke, he's that patient type at times. He likes to sit behind, see how the driver behaves in front, if there's any weakness where he can maybe take advantage, and to keep that pressure on. But I just feel that Pinto is maybe just holding back a little bit through that midpoint of the race, just to keep those tyres in check, because you've got a lot of, even though you've got a lot of flat out sections of this track, you've also got those slow corners where you've got to put a lot of force through those rear tires. You can really overheat them. But generally, I was really impressed throughout the grid with how the drivers went on throughout there, with just that one instant to discuss.
Yeah, just the one penalty being handed out here today to the number 6 car of David de Wit. Of course, that will be applied in terms of the time after the event as we watch these highlights run through. And, well, how many more times will we see this in the remaining races of this season? We've only got 3 races to go. Of course, we have the second race here at the Red Bull Ring, and then we have the 2 races at the very end of the season at a track that, well, everyone, apart from me, still doesn't know for the moment. So that's going to be a pretty intriguing one once we get to that, but we got a pretty large break until between now and then, so we'll just have to wait that a little bit longer than we usually would. But look at this from David Williams, though. I gotta say, Nico, David Williams over the course of this season, he's been the driver that just likes to be a little bit more opportunistic maybe than some other drivers. He's always been a part of this leading train. No matter what track, no matter what race, he's always in there, in and amongst these red line drivers. And he's found some good success sometimes in terms of getting past them. Of course, there's a little bit of bumping and banging there during race number 1 here today. But he's always there ready to capitalize just in case there's a driver ahead that makes a mistake. Maybe he can't get past them on overall pace, but he's putting himself in the best position to pick up the most points possible.
He's a smart racer. Yeah, he's sitting behind. He does not make any mistakes. And as you said, if they bang wheels and at some point a little too hard and they make a mistake, he will be there to get the win and to grab a podium.
Yeah, and well, that's kind of the last thing we'd like to see between Beneke and Pinto, for them to have contact that puts them both out of the race. It'll certainly make things pretty spicy heading into the final round of the season, but we would like to see everything decided on track in terms of battles and overtakes. That is for certain. That's what makes motorsports so great. That's what makes sim racing so great as well, that we can replicate the sort of action that goes on in the real world here in the virtual form as well. So we are just about, I would say, about 4 minutes away from getting ourselves the gridding procedure underway from race number 2 here, Paul. A lot of people joining us both on the Race Sport TV YouTube, and we've also got the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland at YouTube, and also we've got the official Porsche Twitch as well. So 3 places where you can watch the proceedings here today, and well, it's been quite a lot of engagement. Some people can't believe that this is virtual rather than real.
Yeah, absolutely. As we did see that incident that caused Simone Passoni to retire, but yeah, Pinto, what a drive he's been, and yeah, these drivers, you can sort of have to look twice sometimes with some of these events and wonder, actually, is this the real life Super Cup, for example, or the Carrera Cup Deutschland? But no, this is the virtual edition, and it is always tremendous action out there, tremendous respect amongst the drivers as well. It's nothing petulant go on between them, at least in that first race. You never know in the second race.
These things can always change very, very quickly in racing, and it's no different, Nico, between real racing and sim racing. Sometimes there are those situations where the red mist descends and you just get angry, you get frustrated as a driver. Thankfully, Beneke and Pinto haven't had many of those situations so far this season. Yes, they've had bits of contact here and there. I mean, they had a bit of contact in the first race at Imola, which saw Pinto get a penalty at the end of that one, and as a result, the race win went to Max. But these guys, they can't afford to have a problem on track at this stage for both of their for both their seasons, and of course for their relationship in their team as well.
Yeah, it's always important to to hold together and to not crash into each other in one team. And I mean, Pinto just changed within the season into that team, which makes things even more spicy and exciting. I mean, being in a situation of Beneke, being that team for quite a long time, and then your biggest rival gets into your team, it's not the easy situation for yourself, and also mentally quite a huge challenge. But in the end of the day, they are both professionals, and that's what they're showing up. And it's fair racing, it's hard racing. Sometimes they have a little bit of contact, but just not quite enough to turn around or to send someone in a spin or something. It's very fair and great to watch.
Of course, Team Redline as an outfit is one of the oldest sim racing teams that there is. You know, of course, you can trace the lineages of certain teams back pretty far, but the Redline kept the name, the same ownership for a very, very long time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. It's like sort of late '90s, early 2000s where they first started competing. So it's been a very, very long time.
Yeah, it's over 20 years is their history. So they're very experienced. They've got a management team who know what it takes to compete and to manage those drivers as well, because every driver wants to win and they've all got a bit of an ego. So you need to massage those egos on occasion as a management. And so they've got tremendous experience at running at a high level, at the top level as well. So they've won many a championship of Redline. And they're showing here in this series, yes, it's not a team's championship, but they're showing how strong they are as a team.
Of course, always been in the upper echelons of sim racing, especially in particular here on iRacing as well, especially in those old open wheel championships with Gregor Hutu, one of the most famous sim racers here that we have. But of course, we're in a new era of sim racing now, and new names towards the top of the order. But here's the top of the starting grid for race number 2, then it's the exact same as the results from race number 1. So Diogo Pinto will be pole position this time around. Maximilian Benecke demoted to P2 to start here today. Christopher Dambeat in P3 and David Williams in P4. That's exactly how they started race number 1 as well. Ricardo Ferrara in P5 with Florian Bergeri in P6. Gal Valero starts in 7th with Lucas Lippert in P8, Van der Herk in P9, Daniel Muth in 10th, Volkovic 11th, and Lang in 12th. As we'll very quickly run through the rest of the order because we've only got a couple of moments to go here before we get ourselves race number 2 started. There's the very back of the grid with Fritsch and Passoni. We do have to bring you the live coverage though, as the race is about to start. Race number 2 here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg. We're off and away, and what a fantastic start there from Maximilian Benecke. He gets a very good launch, but it's not quite enough to get alongside down in towards turn number 1. Here comes David Williams, a little bit of deja vu in the battle for P3. They go side by side through turn 1 once again. Here comes the challenge of the race lead though. Pinto trying to defend from Benecke. Benecke is not hanging around here. He'll be on the inside for the brakes in towards turn number 3. Up the hill they go, 2 by 2 for podium positions. Pinto around the outside. Careful, there's cold tires here at this stage of the race. Sometimes the grip can be quite limited as there's a crash at the back, Paul.
Yeah, that's Timo Herden who's around, and Pinto finds himself at the front again. With that wide line through turn 3, you can get on the power earlier, but look at that dive to the inside. Benecke is giving it a good go. He wants to get to the lead. Pinto's staying there though. It's alongside. It's not traditionally an overtaking maneuver through turn number 6 here, but Pinto's giving it a good go. But Benecke can run the speed, carry the speed through the corner. Still side by side, they're giving each other space, so that's crucial.
Yeah, running side by side for most of this lap, but Pinto just has to duck back in behind. So a great launch for Benecke has converted into P1 maybe at the end of lap 1 here, as Pinto just shows the nose down the inside at the penultimate turn, now in towards turn 10, the last corner here at the Red Bull Ring before you nail the throttle across the start-finish line. So a bit of a hectic lap number 1 here amongst the top couple of competitors. David Williams, though, again, Nico, he did the exact same thing as he did in race 1. He got the good launch from the second row, got ahead into P3 through turn number 1.
Yeah, and now he's behind, and he's still in a position for, you know, he will be sitting, oh, and there's a crash, another crash. It's just what we said, huh? Race 1 was really, yeah, without any incidents or with only 1 incident, and now we've had 2 already. What was I'm going to say? Williams, yeah, he's doing a great job. I mean, he's sitting behind, and he's a clever person. And the moment Benecke and Pinto fighting too hard each other, he will be there, grabbing that first place.
Yeah, so we're in a very familiar situation here, Paul, because we kind of have the situation from the start of race 1. Of course, the position's reversed in terms of the race lead at the moment, because Pinto was leading early on in the in race number 1, but still, it was a bit of a chaotic start. We saw, like Nico said, a couple more incidents towards the very back of the field than we saw in race number 1, but it seems like leading a train, keeping himself close together for the moment. And well, how aggressive does Pinto decide to be now in the early portions of this race, especially considering he doesn't have a teammate behind him? That is David Williams there in the VRS Crown and Stone Sports car. So obviously he doesn't want to jeopardize his own race, but you know, he might even be jeopardizing the races of both himself and Benecke if he makes a bit of a rash move here, and Williams is able to get back through, as we'll look at a replay at the start.
Oh, and it's the 6 again. Turn 3 makes contact, around went, that was, I said it was Timo Herden, that was it. Then there was the incident at the start of lap 2 out to turn 1 as well, which I'm sure we'll get a look at some point. But yeah, Pinto, I was surprised to see him showing his nose going into the penultimate corner on lap 1. It was super aggressive. It can cost you a little bit of speed through that corner if you run a compromised line. But they're now sort of getting to the rhythm of the track and of the race here. And again, Pinto's keeping the pressure on. As you say, roles reversed. Pinto putting the pressure on.
Is the 108 running out into the gravel. Big lock up there. And that was Philip van der Herk having many problems trying to get that car slowed down with that lockup. He gets cycled back into P16, so at the very back of the grid. That's because we had those problems on lap 1 and 2, but still a long road back for that number 108 after that issue going into the gravel. But here's the very front of the field once again. The front two trying to gap the rear two in this battle here. Beneke and Pinto trying to break away all on their own and let Williams and Dambeats scrap amongst themselves for third place. This will probably be the best option for the both of them here, Nico. If they're able to get this two-car tandem going and get themselves ahead of everyone else, that will give them the room to fight a little bit later on in the race without having to worry about all those third parties getting themselves involved. It looks like they'll fight now instead, as Pinto making the move on the brakes into turn 3. Up the hill they go. They're absolutely level coming off the corner here. There's a slight speed advantage going the way of Beneke at the moment as they'll head down and in towards turn number 4. Beneke on the outside here, looking to swing that car around and keep himself ahead in that first place, but Pinto's giving him a good run. They're still door-to-door here, Paul, on the way in towards turn number 6. There's no holds barred between the two teammates.
Pinto's had to relinquish though and relent for the time being, but he's showing his intention here. As I said, he likes to be at the front and he likes to get up at the front and control things from there, whereas Beneke, he doesn't really seem to mind where he is, but you can see the urgency in Pinto and wanting to try and get past Beneke here. He wants to try to get to the front as soon as possible and then try and control things.
Yeah, so I was going to say, you know, because I was just saying to you, Nico, the best option for these front two is to break away from everyone else so they can have space to fight. But it seems like they just want to fight here and now. So yeah, Nico, you know, what's your thoughts on them deciding to scrap now instead of a little bit later on when they have a gap? Oh, down the inside again. I think we lost Nico, but we haven't lost the battle as Pinto again sending it down the inside there. Beneke getting the better traction off the corner, which will benefit him a huge bunch heading down the straight here towards turn 4. It's part 2. Bit of deja vu. 1 lap ago, they did this exact same move, and now they're side by side into turn 4 again. Can Pinto complete the move this time, though? Gets the power down. Coming off the corner, they almost make contact, and I think they did have a little bit of a love tap there. Pinto on the outside now for turn 6, as there's contact. Beneke into the side of Pinto. Pinto slides, doesn't spin all the way around, but a crucial moment, Paul.
That is huge. That is your two championship contenders making contact between each other. And you can bet your bottom dollar that the race stewards will have a look at that. That could have some huge implications here in terms of the championship, though, because Beneke now, he's in first place. He's got David Williams behind, but Pinto falling back to 9th place. Amazingly, only 4.3 seconds off the race leader here.
That is absolutely... We didn't want to see it, of course, but sometimes these things do happen, as we'll get ourselves maybe a replay of that in just a little bit. But now it's Williams in 2nd place. He has picked up the pieces from that incident, and now he might be the one to challenge Beneke for the race lead. That's certainly what Pinto will be hoping for, as Dambeats very much commits to the corner there. Commits on the brakes, almost runs into the back of the Coanda car. But let's have a look at the replay then. Between the two, I get the feeling this is always going to happen there. Oh, we're going to have another look at that one. Not entirely sure what to think, but either way, it's Pinto back to 9th now.
Certainly is, and wow, I mean, Nico, this is what we feared could happen, wasn't it? Between the two championship contenders, and maybe Pinto's just squeezed a little bit too much there.
Seems like we still, unfortunately, cannot hear Nico's view of things. But yeah, there was very limited. You know, there's only one car that can occupy that inside there, and Well, of course, the stewards will be looking at that, but I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll see which way it goes. I don't think Benneke's at fault for that one. I think he's gonna. I think if anything, that's probably. Oh, I don't know. It's definitely more Pinto's fault than Benneke's. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's something that the race stewards are going to have a look at here and see what will happen there. They've got a tough decision to make in all of that, whether it was a racing incident. The fact that they were side by side, though,
yeah.
I just feel that maybe Pinto just squeezed across a bit too much. It's difficult to go through that turn 6 side by side together. They did manage it a lap earlier, but that time it was a little bit too much. But if I'm Pinto now, I'm one, trying to get moved forward through the field, but two, hoping that David Williams now starts tripping over Max Benneke.
Yeah, this probably is going to be one of the turning points in terms of the championship now, because I don't see in any universe that Benneke gets a penalty for that, because he was the innocent driver holding his line on the insides there. So it's either the decision between the stewards between racing incident or, if they feel it's appropriate, penalty for Pinto, which will be one of the nails in the coffin, Paul.
Well, I'm personally, if I'm stewarding that, I'm giving a racing incident. If you ask me, I wouldn't be giving a penalty personally, but it's one of those. It is one of those a little bit of a fine line between the two of them there. But yeah, Pinto, it's bad. He's back behind Muth as well, and he's dropping back from that lead pack, that lead 7. This is costing him big, and that will be a massive issue in terms of his points and his championship chances.
Well, I'm having a look at because we have a stewarding room here in our Discord, and I'm seeing the stewards all streaming their views to each other so that they can decide on an incident. And yeah, they are definitely looking at that particular incident there. And of course, you know, the luxury of sim racing is here. I'll try Nico again, but hopefully he is here. The luxury of sim racing is that the stewards do have basically infinite angles that they can look at an incident from. They can place the camera anywhere they want, and they'll be able to get a clear picture of what's going on. So it's great to have that benefit. Might as well take this one, Paul.
Yeah, it is an advantage. I mean, in the past I have done race stewarding myself, and it really does help. You know, you're not limited by just having TV cameras or the circuit CCTV cameras, or maybe if you're lucky an onboard shot. Here in sim racing, you can basically say, oh, did they make contact? Let me just move this camera around and we'll have a look. Did they make contact? Yes, they did make contact. Right, why did that happen? And you can look at it from every angle that you can possibly think of. So definitely interesting to see how the stewards will see that one. But still, we've got this this battle for the race lead right now. They are still pushing on, and David Williams still keeping the pressure on Max Benneke. I would love to see David make a move here and try and get to the front of the field, because really it'd be great to see David up there at the front, as Benneke made a mistake there.
Yeah, he did. So now the pressure might be coming from David Williams. This would be an incredible result if Williams is able to get up into the race lead and get his race winning here, because it seems like he's always been there or thereabouts, but it's never really been in the position to be able to capitalize on everything going on. Of course, his highest finish so far this season has been 3rd place. He's already doing better than that right now in 2nd, but for Williams, the race win potentially calling at this point. And look at the draft on the way into the next braking zone. Here comes David Williams then, looking to grab P1 away from Beneke. Good launch off the corner as well, can continue the flight on the way down and towards turn number 4. I don't know which way this one's going to turn out. Williams still has a nose to the inside here. Means that Beneke must still give him the space if he's significantly alongside. And there we go, David Williams, half a car length ahead by the time the exit of turn 4 arrives, but that's simply not enough to get it done here on the way into turn 6. Battle for the race lead continues on. Dambeat's waiting in the wings there in 3rd. Beneke now half a car length ahead into turn 7. This is brilliant door-to-door action in round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. And Williams has the runner speed on the way down in towards the penultimate corner now. Dambeat is looking to try and follow in the tyre tracks of Williams here. Williams to the race lead. Beneke looking for the cut back off the corner. Isn't available, and now Williams leads.
This is incredible. Brilliant stuff and great respect between the two drivers there to give each other space. We saw that there was no love lost between the two of them in race number 1 of the evening. But right now, Beneke, with half the race still to go here, he's now 2nd place. He's not, I bet he won't be too concerned about it because of the fact that Pinto has fallen back. He's now recovered to 8th place, but Beneke wants this place immediately. Williams going defensive. Can they get the cut back, or is he going to hang it out around the outside? He can carry the speed around there.
I think that might have been another incident with Pinto as well. He's complaining in the chat saying he got shunted. But let's have a look then. Battle for the race lead once again. Down into turn number 4. Beneke swing it around the outside. You can carry the momentum around the outside there, but it seems like the inside just gets just a better run through the corner, better traction out of the corner as well. And David Williams remains ahead here for Virasco and the Sim Sports, looking for his first win of the season.
I'll tell you what, the Brit, he would be delighted if he does get a win here, and it would be deserved as well because he's been up there with these drivers all the way through through this event here. So he's got the pace, he's got the car underneath him, but it's now about whether he can hold on to the lead. We saw how he made a mistake, remember, in race number 1, which gave Dambeat the position, and Beneke now is actually looking a little bit more defensive than attacking because Dambeat is right behind him now.
Of course, Dambeat wants to minimize the points lost to Williams, so he's definitely well within his rights to harass Beneke a little bit here. Well, we'll see how it turns out between all 3 of these drivers at the very front. Remember, Ferreira and Valero are not too far away either. Get so close on the brakes through turn 3. It's amazing how close these guys can run up against each other without any contact. Beneke looking for a line now, trying to pick one down in towards turn number 4. You see Williams very, very conservative, not even taking the proper racing line on entry to turn number 4 there, just because he's so scared about a lunge from Beneke.
Well, look behind as well. You've got Ferreira, you've got Valero. Pinto's on the 3.5 seconds, 3.25 seconds off of the race lead here. Don't write him off, folks. You know, we've seen how aggressive Diogo Pinto can be, and that would be absolutely incredible for his chances to move back up through the field here.
Williams is basically Pinto's best friend here, because with the amount of side-by-side that these guys up at the front have been doing, it's slower to go side-by-side through corners than single file. That's probably the most obvious statement I'll make all day, but it is the situation that we've seen, and it's bunched everyone up behind these leaders at the moment, and Pinto trying to lock onto the back of them. Still on the edge of the slipstream of the leading pack at the moment is Pinto, but still, if he can just gain 1 or 2 more tenths of a second, he'll be getting the draft and then potentially trying to work through on this train. Whether or not he'll get to the front with 11 minutes remaining, that's a tall ask. But here comes Beneke once again around the outside at turn 3. Another attempt, another stab at it, but still not able to work his way through just yet. another instance of door-to-door racing between your leaders and yet more time lost to the cars behind. You get the feeling as well. Beneke is ahead down into turn 4, but how many times have we seen this situation already where Beneke can't hold the position around the outside? He'll still have the nose to the inside for turn 4 though, or rather turn 6. Oh, they almost make contact, and that might let Beneke through.
They did make contact. There was just the slightest of contact between the two of them. Williams was trying to squeeze Beneke through all of that, and here comes Dan Beats. Dan Beats wants to take advantage of this situation as well. Don't forget that Williams is trying to catch Dan Beats for 3rd place in the championship right now. And Dan Beats, he could do his effort a whole world of good by getting ahead of Williams, which in turn would help Beneke out there. Now Beneke, if he can, he's going to try and run away with this one now. He's trying to gap out from David Williams here. And look at that, they're all using the slipstream. And Gar Valero, what a race he's having as well, up into 5th place in all of this. He's there with this lead battle.
Ferrara having a good race as well. Lebecri as well, deeper in the pack. His first race, I believe, in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. He sits in 6th place at the moment, which is pretty good going. Dan Beats looking to the outside on Williams now, in the braking zone through 3. Not going to be able to make any progress there. Beneke is hoping that those guys fight for P2, so he's able to break away at the front. We're also tracking the progress of Pinto, who's now very much inside the slipstream of this leading pack. He has 9 minutes now to gain as many positions as possible.
But that's going to be incredibly difficult, though. With it being so close with this leading pack, as you say, 7 cars, all covered by 2.2 seconds. So I don't know what it is that Pinto will have to do, but he'll have to pull out some incredible late-braking maneuvers to be able to even move 1 place, let alone all the way up to the podium. So yeah, it's almost heartbreak for Pinto in all of this. And you can see his championship chances just ebbing away just a little bit. Of course, we have got one final round of the championship to go in October, but this is a big deal. There was only a couple of points between himself and Beneke coming into this race. This is huge for him in the championship.
It is. He needs... Pinto needs to drive like a bat out of hell right now. He needs to try and get past as many cars in this leading train as is possible. It's very much easier said than done, but if there's one driver who's capable of doing it, well, Pinto is going to be one of those. Of course, he's had bits of contact so far this race as well, so might be worrying a little bit about the damage. Oh, speaking of contacts though, Dan Beats kind of cutting up Ferrara there. Ferrara not too happy about it, and it's triggered a fight behind now, right in front of Pinto, as Valero and Lebecri go side by side, and now potentially Ferrara involved as well. 3 wide in front of Pinto here, down in towards turn number 4. Surely this can't end well. Somehow it does, and now Pinto tries to pick through the pieces.
But he can't get through, and this is it. He can't get past them, and these 3 fighting in front of him is causing a gap between himself and Dan Beats in front. So absolute nightmare out there for Pinto. He can't get past, and Valero in front of him. He's got to try and get past. He's got to move past sooner rather than later with only 7 minutes remaining. This is a brave move into the penultimate corner. Not happening.
No, not happening at all. 7 minutes left to go here for Pinto to salvage a race here, salvage some points to keep himself in contention as close as possible into the final round of competition. No move being made into turn 1, not an overtaking opportunity at this track. Typically, it's the run down in towards turn number 3 that you really want, and then in turn, hopefully, down in towards turn number 4 as well, as the front of this pack has really broken away now thanks to all the scrapping. That's not what you want to see if you are Pinto, as Pinto sends it down the inside of the Valero there, and he does gain the position. So that's a handful of more points gained there for Pinto.
We're finally getting some decisions, by the way, from the race stewards from lap 1. So I think it's going to be post-race if any penalty does come forth for this one, as we see Lebegre now making his way past Ferrara. And Pinto will be, oh, Ferreira very wide there. And Pinto says, oh, well, you don't need to ask me twice. I'm coming through.
2 positions in a single lap for the 1-2-1. That one a little bit luckier than the previous one, but now Pinto can focus on the car ahead of him. Now that is Florian Lebegri there in the number 75 car. Let's see how hard Lebegri fights this one, because you don't really want to rock the boat if you're new to the series, especially if it has some form of influence on the championship. So let's see what happens here between these two. The front three, though, had been able to break away by about 2 seconds. That's how much these guys have been fighting. Fourth might be the highest Pinto gets here.
Oh, and he'll be absolutely gutted with that if that's the case. And, well, Pinto in the slipstream, moving down towards turn 3. He can make the move. We saw him make the move on the previous lap. Looking to the inside, on the brakes later. Can he keep it on the track? Yes, he can, and he carries the speed through the corner as well. Beautifully done. And in fact, Lebegre behind is now going to be possibly under pressure from Ferreira. No, stay as they are.
Yeah, so that's Pinto now up into what is 4th place, which is a lot better than the, well, he went down to like 9th place, didn't he, at the end of that instance. So has recovered a couple of positions. He keeps himself in contention in terms of the championship heading into the final round. That's such an important sequence of moves that Pinto has been able to pull off. He now, if we take the results of this race as they are, he will be 9 points behind Beneke in the championship there. So just to give you a little bit of context, there's a 5-point difference between P1 and P2. So if he wins, if the race finishes as it is now, and in the final 2 races, Pinto wins and Beneke comes second, Pinto will still win the championship.
Yeah, this is incredible.
By 1 point.
This is incredible. This is what I love about this series, and those two, Pinto and Beneke, have been so close together. And wow, there we go. Lap 5, turn 5, cars 11 and 121. No further action. That's Beneke and Pinto. I called it as a racing incident.
Yeah, and you were absolutely right. I mean, I was erring on that side as well. I don't think there was any universe that Beneke would get the blame for that one. He did absolutely nothing wrong on the inside. So, yeah, there we go. So stewards have decided, okay, you know, everything's fair game. No further action on that one. And in a way, you could also say that, well, Pinto, as a result of coming off the worst in that instant, has kind of already been penalised.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I completely agree with that decision by the stewards, and yeah, I'm comfortable with that. What does appear comfortable as well is Beneke at the front, half a second now in front. You just get the feeling he's got that edge over David Williams now heading into this final couple of laps here. And Williams, if anything, maybe come under pressure from Dan Beats, but Dan Beats has fallen back a little bit as well.
There we go then. 2 minutes 30 left in race number 2 here at the Red Bull Ring. We've got, well, after this one, only 2 races to go before we decide our champion here. And, well, the story here at the Red Bull Ring has been one of frustration for Diogo Pinto here in this second race. Race number 1 couldn't really have gone better. You know, it had his fair fights with Beneke, able to pull the gap at the very end of the race and come away with a clean win, but contact with his teammates towards the, well, first third of the race here today cycled Pinto back into what was 9th place, but he was able to work his way back up into 4th. If it finishes as it is right now, well, Beneke will have 9 points the advantage heading into the final round. But we've already gone through one of the permutations that could happen in that final round. If Pinto wins both those races and Beneke finishes second in both those races, Pinto will still win the championship by 1 point. But Beneke, as long as he can get to the end here, see the checkered flag, get onto the top step of the podium, he will still have the best opportunity possible into that final round to take the championship. So it does sound like we do have Nico back in the commentary booth then. Not sure how much you've been able to pay attention to the race due to dealing with your technical issues, but Pinto, well, he's done the best out of a bad hand here, I think.
I saw everything, yeah. Well, I think Pinto just turned in a little too heavy in that moment, and yeah, probably caused that issue and that incident. But yeah, he's doing his best to fight back and yeah, to do the best he can. I mean, coming from P9 he was aiming now for P4 or P5. What is he? Yeah, it's something very strong indeed. And
well, he is, you know, we won't have time to catch the leaders here at this point. He is going very rapidly indeed, but you know, we're on the final lap here, so it's not likely that we'll be able to improve position unless Dambeats and Williams have a bit of a problem, because they are fighting for P2 at the moment. There is a universe where Pinto finishes P2 here, and we've gone absolutely nowhere in terms of the championship today, despite the ups and downs like a roller coaster. But there's the confirmation of the final lap here. Beneke trying to get clear. There's the move down the inside for Dambeats, though. Not a typical overtaking point through turn 6, but looking to try and get P2 away from David Williams as they'll get door to door. So close through turn 7. Battle on the final lap for second place. Williams remains ahead here in the VRS Carrera Sim Sports car, but here comes the Porsche 24 driven by Redline of Dambeats around the outside at the penultimate corner. Can't quite get it done there. Surely, careful of the track limits. He has to fall in behind. Maybe look to get a good run out of the final corner. We'll get ourselves Beneke winning race 2. It's close at P2 though between Williams and Dambeats, but Williams comes out on top. But Beneke, he has a points gap now heading into the final race of the season, the final 2 races of the season. An ideal day for the number 11, holding all the cards into that final event. Here's the rest of the runners heading their way across the line now. Maybe even a battle between the 77 and the 285 here. That back in the field. Oh, this is the battle for 18th place. A shot to the back bumper from Igor Kos onto the 77 of Fritsch there, but Fritsch will come across the line ahead in this situation. But oh, Paul, you know, this race was pretty hectic.
it was a bit more exciting than race 1, but we kind of expected maybe the heat to be turned up in this one. Beneke and Pinto, I mean, this is turned into a championship fight for the ages, and certainly Beneke able to get one over. Race stewards called it as a no further action racing incident between Beneke and Pinto, maybe because of Pinto dropping back those positions, but my goodness, what a race that was. Excitement everywhere.
Maximilian Beneke wins race number 2. David Williams in second place. That's his season best finish so far for the VRS Carrera Sim Sports driver. He's just missing out the race win now in terms of top 3 results this season. Christopher Dambeats in P3 with Diogo Pinto recovering after an incident with his teammates up into P4. 9 points behind Beneke in the championship heading into the final event. Florian Lebegri, great event though for the 75 in his first race. Fantastic stuff, finishing in P5 here today. Gal Ferreira having a very good day too. He's up in 6th place. Ricardo Ferreira having a couple of problems towards the end there. Falls down into P7 after running a little bit higher a little bit earlier on. Daniel Muth in 8th with Lucas Lang in 9th. Adam Volkovic will round out the top 10 in the unofficial order for race number 2, as we'll get ourselves our view cycled through to see P11 and back. Lucas Lippert in P11, Timu Hayden in 12th, Regu Gaira, I'm going to trip over that name every single time, I do apologize, in P13. David De Witt in P14 with Simone Passoni in P15, Matthias Siebels in P16, Philip van der Herk in P17, Marcel Fritsch in P18. Igor Kos and Tim Beleke round out the 20-car finishing results here. Everyone got themselves to the checkered flag, by the way. No retirements here in race number 2, which is what we absolutely love to see. So just to wrap up here, race number 2. Of course, you know, we have to wait a little bit while before we get to see more action here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. But Nico, you know, it's great to have you back in the booth here. Of course, we'll see you next event in maybe a little bit of a different set of circumstances. Stay tuned for that. But how would you rate the races here today? Because again, it seems like this series delivers every time.
Absolutely, it was exciting, and I mean, first race it was a bit more structured, and everyone did very well. No really contact, no incidents. But the last race, second race, that was really heavy. I mean, the biggest thing is, and the most exciting thing, the most important thing for the championship, that Pinto did a little mistake. Then had a let's say he spun or had a half of a spin, and he did a mistake. In the end of the day, he fought back very, very well, and he did everything he could to stay more or less in a championship, or in a championship fight, which will be still close. I mean, 9 points are more than 2 points as it was before, but it's still all open for the last couple of rounds, or for the last 2 rounds then in a couple of weeks.
There's still very much all to play for here, Paul. Maybe not as close as we were hoping, but still very, very close indeed. When you imagine less than 10 points separating them at the end of the season with the amount of races that we've had, it's a great achievement. And you've got some information that Pinto is not a very happy bunny at the moment.
He's not pleased. I don't know if you've ever seen the scenes of racing drivers going charging into the garage to have it out with the other driver, or go up and see the stewards and not happy. He's not happy at all, I can tell you that for sure. He thinks he held his line and got shunted, so yeah, he's not happy with that decision. Of course, he can appeal the decision. There is that available to him. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, I called it in the commentary as a racing incident. I thought that he'd squeezed across on Max, and that's what caused him to lose control. And I, without being able to see the steward's decision myself, I would feel that that's what they've concluded as well there. But what it does is it makes it a bit more spicy for the final round. It gets it a bit more exciting. Pinto has one thing to do next round: win both races. If he can do that, he knows he can win a championship.
I would understand Pinto's perspective if that happened on the exit of the corner, if he was run out of road by Beneke. But no, it happened in the apex of the corner there, Nico, which is a completely different situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just misjudged it a bit. The moment we turn in just a few meters before, or a little too early. In the end of the day, it's just a matter of 4 or 5 centimeters probably. Yeah, and it's a friction of a second where you have to decide. And yeah, I mean, as we said before, we can see it from all the perspectives, and yeah, not only from the perspective of Pinto being in the rig and being in the race, full of adrenaline. I think he might have a look for the video later on, and will analyze his, that situation himself. And then he will see that it was probably just a bit less room which he gave Beneke compared to the laps before, and there they did very well, and wheel-to-wheel racing throughout many corners, and it was nice to watch. This time a little mistake, and in the end of the day he still has to win both races then on the final, of course, and then he can still become the champion, of course. Yeah, all open.
That's the basically the maximum he needs to do, Paul, is win both races next event, and he will be the champion. No matter how, that's one of the permutations that's, basically guarantees him the championship. But everything else, kind of works out more in Beneke's favor if he doesn't win both races. So yeah, very intriguing heading into that final round. We do have the opportunity just to have a little bit of a chat here with a couple of the drivers. I think Pinto and Beneke are arguing amongst them between themselves a little bit too much. Yeah, I imagine in the real world it would be after the race, getting out of the cars and just like, trying to, well, not so much get in each other's faces, but have a very stern discussion between the two of them.
Don't forget, these two are teammates now as well.
Yeah, so anyway, we will distract ourselves from that, and we'll have a little bit of a talk to the driver that came in second place here in race 2 today. David, your first second place in this series. Unfortunately, it wasn't the first win, that you were looking for, but you gave it a good go.
Yeah. Hey guys, I gave it a try. Led a few laps. Well, it felt like a few laps. It probably was maybe one. I don't even know. But yeah, the pace just was not quite there today. So I really had to try and hope for some carnage. There was a little bit of drama, but not the drama that I needed to put me, in contention for third again. But yeah, no, I'm still pretty happy. Obviously, best result of the season. So yeah, unfortunately, I was making a few mistakes at the end, so I lost touch of Beneka, and then had to defend a little bit. But yeah, overall, I can be quite happy, I guess.
Yeah, and certainly can't complain about that result. It doesn't really help that Dan Beats finished right behind you, who's your kind of closest competitor for that third place in the championship. So unfortunately for you, you weren't able to gain too many points over him to make that battle a little bit closer into the final round. But just overall, how would you rate your season at this point? Because we're one event away from the very end. From our perspective at least, it seems like you had a little bit of trouble in the early portions of the event of the entire season, which in some cases weren't your fault. But I just want to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. It's been a season of potential opportunities that just haven't really materialized. Like you say, I had some troubles early on in the season, especially Monza. That was quite a big one. Yeah, because that was also a potential battle for the lead on the last lap, and then really sort of horrible collision basically put me out of the race essentially. So I lost a lot of points there, and obviously the disconnect in the last round. Yeah, it's pretty disappointing, to be honest, but I guess I'm fairly happy with my performance, and it gives some confidence, I guess, that I can fight with these guys in PESC next year, assuming that I qualify, which is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, and of course that's the next big focus for you. So we really do wish the best of luck in that particular series. I'll be commentating it, just so happens. So you'll enjoy my voice once again, maybe on an interview after the event. But we will let you go here, as we do have to wrap up pretty soon. But David, congratulations on the second place in race 2, and hopefully we'll see you in that final round.
Great, thanks guys, thanks Connery.
Well, there we go. That was David Williams there from VRS Commander Sim Sports. I do have some news on the Diogo Pinto and Maximilian Beneka incident. Both of them have now been called up into the stewards room, so the stewards can explain why they came to their decision there. So there might be a little bit more drama after this one. Who knows, Paul? But very quickly from the both of you, from both Paul and Nico, just your thoughts on today and your thoughts on, well, a month's time.
It was drama. Drama today. We saw how a championship can just easily swing in one simple incident. So definitely that you've got to think of that heading into this final round next month. And I'm certainly looking forward to the championship finale, wherever it is. I don't know. Connery knows, but certainly it's going to be an enthralling, exciting end to this season.
Yeah,
give us a hint. Come on, Connery.
It's a track we haven't been to yet. There we go. That's the most pointless clue that I can give you. But yeah, that will of course be announced 48 hours before the commencement of that event. Of course, you have to pay attention to the Porsche Motorsports and Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland and Racesport TV social medias to see what's going to be happening there. But we've got more drama in the stewards room. We'll, of course, if there's any changes to the results here, we will let you know over the social media channels. But at least from me, at least from Paul, and of course, Nico, thank you very much for joining us as our special guest commentator. It's great to have your experience in the commentary booth to take us through the action. But that's going to be it here for round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. 9 points separate Beneka and Pinto heading into the final round of the season. That's going to be on the 17th of October. So we'll all be here for that particular event to see who comes out on top. But for now, goodbye.